They give you a crown of praise, but it is a cage. They call you kind, but they mean you are harmless. You believe you are building bridges, but you are only forging the chains of your own servitude. What if the path to true power begins not with a roar, but by embracing the silence they fear? This is the path walked by the majority, a landscape of quiet desperation paved with good intentions. It is the world of the person who seeks to be liked. You know this person intimately, for their shadow may be your own. They are the constant peacemaker, the agreeable colleague, the friend who never says no. On the surface, they are seen as benevolent, a pillar of social harmony. But the strategist sees the truth with piercing clarity. This is not harmony, it is capitulation. It is not strength, it is a profound and exploitable weakness. The desire to be liked is an addiction to the validation of others, and like any addiction, it robs you of your will. It transforms you into a vessel, hollowed out and waiting to be filled by the opinions and desires of those around you. You become a mirror, reflecting what each person wishes to see, losing your own image in the process. Consider the ship that navigates not by its own map and compass, but by the ever-shifting winds of external approval. When the wind blows from the north, it sails north, abandoning its southern destination. When a storm of criticism gathers, it frantically changes course, seeking the calm harbor of acceptance, no matter how far it deviates from its true purpose. This ship has no anchor. It is at the mercy of every current, every tide, every passing breeze. It drifts aimlessly, celebrated for its flexibility, but ultimately arriving nowhere of importance. This is the fate of the one who values being liked above all else. Their life ceases to be a deliberate campaign and becomes a series of reactions. Their decisions are not born from internal conviction, but from a desperate calculation. What must I do or say to earn their approval? How can I avoid their disappointment? This is the psychology of a hostage. Your emotional well-being is held captive by the whims of others. You hand them the power to define your worth, and they will invariably define it in terms that serve their own interests. Your kindness is no longer seen as a virtue, but as a resource. Your flexibility is not admired, but exploited. You are not a partner in their world, you are a tool. And tools, when they are no longer useful, are discarded without a second thought. But there exists another way, an ancient path carved not from aggression or cruelty, but from a deep understanding of human nature and the mechanics of power. This is the way of the strategist, as taught by the master Sun Tzu. He observed the movements of armies and the politics of courts, but his true subject was the battlefield of the human mind. His wisdom does not teach you to be feared, for fear is a coarse and unreliable instrument. It teaches you to be respected, for respect is a silent, invisible weapon that grants victory before the battle has even begun. The first principle of this transformation is found in one of his most vital teachings. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. The common man reads this and looks outward. He seeks to understand his rivals, his competitors, his opponents, but the true student of strategy looks inward first. For you will come to understand a terrifying truth. In the campaign for your own sovereignty, the greatest enemy is not the person who disrespects you. It is your own desperate need for their approval. This need is the strategic flaw that undermines all your defenses. Sun Tzu understood that all warfare is based on deception. But how can you deceive an opponent when your own desires make you utterly predictable? The person who craves approval is the most predictable person in the world. They are an open book. A strategist who understands your hunger for praise knows exactly which levers to pull. They can control you with a single compliment. They can destabilize you with a subtle frown. Your need to be liked makes you transparent. It signals to everyone that your internal foundation is weak and that you seek external support to remain standing. You surrender the element of surprise, the strategist's greatest asset. You reveal your center of gravity, and a wise opponent will strike there without hesitation. Therefore, the first move on this new path is not an action, but a cessation of action. It is the embrace of silence and observation. You must learn to quiet the clamoring voice within that begs for validation. In this cultivated stillness, you stop reacting and begin to see. You observe the game as it is truly played. You watch how others use praise as currency, and criticism as a weapon. You see that those who command genuine respect are rarely the most agreeable. They are the most competent. They are the most disciplined. Their actions are aligned with an internal compass, not the shifting winds of popular opinion. This is the beginning of knowing yourself. You identify the enemy within, the weakness of needing to be liked, and you begin the campaign of starving it into submission. This is not a path to becoming cold or unkind. It is the path to ensuring that your kindness is a deliberate choice, a gift from a position of strength, not a desperate plea from a position of weakness. It is the beginning of true power. This is the fundamental divide between the pawn and the player. The pawn moves where it is told, seeking the approval of the hand that moves it. The player sees the entire board and moves with a purpose that is entirely their own. The choice of which you will become is yours alone, but it begins with the discipline to detach from the immediate, intoxicating drug of being liked and to begin the slow, deliberate work of building something far more enduring. For the need for approval is the current that keeps you chained. To break it, you must first understand the foundations of real power. Comment, "I forge my own value," to declare your independence, and subscribe to learn how to transform respect into a weapon. You have declared your independence from the tyranny of opinion. You have made the vow to forge your own value. This declaration, however, is not a destination. It is the drawing of a battle line within your own soul. Now, you must learn the principles of this new silent warfare. You must construct the architecture of a fortress, built not of stone and mortar, but of discipline and perception. To do this, we turn again to the master strategist, who understood that the most decisive victories are won in the minds of the combatants, long before any overt action is taken. These are not rules to be memorized, but forces to be mastered. The first and most foundational principle is knowledge, but not in the way the common mind understands it. Sun Tzu taught, "Know your enemy and know yourself." We have established that your primary enemy is the hollow ache for affirmation within. Therefore, the first act of war is a ruthless campaign of self-interrogation. You must become an archaeologist of your own psyche, digging past the layers of social conditioning to uncover the source of this need. Why do you flinch at disapproval? What fear is activated by the threat of being disliked? Is it the fear of loneliness, of irrelevance, of failure? You must look upon these fears without judgment, as a general studies a map of the terrain. These are not your personal failings. They are strategic vulnerabilities, emotional landscapes that your opponents, knowingly or not, will exploit. This deep, unflinching self-knowledge is the bedrock upon which all strategy is built. Once you understand the terrain of your own mind, you are no longer a lost traveler within it. You are its sovereign. But this knowledge must extend outward. The strategist then becomes a quiet anthropologist of the human condition. You must study the social terrain with the same dispassionate intensity. Observe the world around you as a marketplace where validation is the primary currency. Watch how people trade compliments for favors. See how they use passive aggression and subtle exclusion to punish those who do not conform. Listen to what is said, but more importantly, understand what is being sought. In almost every interaction, you will find someone trading a piece of their authenticity for a moment of approval. By understanding this universal hunger in others, you gain a profound strategic advantage. You see the hidden levers that move the world, and you become immune to their pull because you have severed your own need for that which they offer. This dual knowledge of your inner world and the outer social landscape is the lantern that illuminates the path. Without it, you are fighting blind. The second principle is formlessness. Sun Tzu wrote, "The ultimate in disposing one's troops is to be without ascertainable shape." The person who needs to be liked has a very definite shape. They are solid, rigid, and utterly predictable. Their form is a composite of the expectations of others. They react to flattery by softening, to criticism by hardening, and to pressure by yielding. Their shape is known, and what is known can be broken. The strategist, however, cultivates the opposite. You must become like water. Water has no fixed form. It cannot be grasped in a fist. It cannot be shattered with a hammer. It yields to an obstacle, flowing around it only to reform on the other side, its purpose undiminished. In a state of formlessness, your actions are no longer dictated by external stimuli, they are dictated by your internal purpose. To be formless is to be free from the obligation to react. When someone praises you, you do not swell with pride, you observe their intention. When someone insults you, you do not burn with anger. You analyze their strategy. You disconnect the external event from the internal emotional response. This creates an unreadable quality that deeply unsettles those who rely on emotional manipulation to navigate the world. They push and you are not there. They pull and you offer no resistance. You become a ghost in their machine, a presence that is felt and effective, but whose inner workings remain a complete mystery. This is a profound form of power. People cannot fight what they cannot understand. They cannot predict a move that is not a reaction to their own. By dissolving your predictable shape, you move from being a chess piece on the board to being the unpredictable mind of the player, whose intentions are inscrutable until the final decisive move is made. The third principle is the subtle application of deception. This is not the crude art of the liar. That is the tool of the desperate. For the strategist, deception is the art of strategic opacity. Sun Tzu advised, "Let your plans be dark and impenetrable as night, and when you move, fall like a thunderbolt." This is not about fabricating falsehoods. It is about a radical conservation of your intent. The world does not need to know your thoughts, your ambitions, or your strategy. The person who seeks to be liked over-explains, overshares, and constantly broadcasts their intentions, hoping to win allies and preempt criticism. They lay all their cards on the table, believing transparency builds trust. The strategist knows it merely invites attack. Strategic opacity means you build a reputation based on your actions, not your announcements. You operate like an iceberg. Only a fraction of your mass, the decisive action, is visible above the surface. The vast majority, your research, your planning, your true motivations, remains submerged, unseen, and powerful. Your calm exterior becomes the ultimate form of deception. While others are consumed by emotional storms, your placid surface reveals nothing of the calculated currents moving within. People will mistake your silence for uncertainty, your deliberation for hesitation, and your self-control for lack of passion. Let them. These misinterpretations are a strategic veil. They lower the guard of your adversaries and allow you the space to maneuver. You are not obligated to provide a running commentary of your inner world. Your duty is to the mission, to the objective. By keeping your counsel, your words, when you choose to speak them, gain immense weight. Your actions, when you choose to take them, land with the shocking and undeniable force of a thunderbolt from a clear sky. Imagine a critical business meeting. It is a theater of egos. The eager participants vie for the spotlight, interrupting each other, armed with loud opinions and a desperate need to be seen as the smartest person in the room. They are seeking validation. They want to be liked and admired by the person in charge. They are predictable. But the strategist sits in observation. They have done the work beforehand, knowledge. They listen, absorbing information, mapping the alliances and the unspoken anxieties in the room. They are not moved by the emotional currents of the debate, formlessness. They do not react to provocations or feel the need to defend their ego. Then, at the precise moment of maximum confusion, when all others have exhausted themselves, the strategist speaks. They do not offer a loud opinion. They present one simple, undeniable fact, or a single, piercing question that reframes the entire problem. Their contribution is not designed to win approval. It is designed to be effective. A silence falls upon the room. In that silence, you will not find affection. You will find something far more valuable, the unmistakable birth of respect. You have absorbed the ancient principles. You have learned to see the world not as a stage for seeking affection, but as a terrain to be navigated with intelligence and purpose. You have begun the practice of formlessness and strategic opacity. But these external tactics, as powerful as they are, will inevitably fail if the internal fortress is not sound. The most formidable army will collapse if its commander is plagued by indecision and consumed by fear. Therefore, the third and most crucial stage of your transformation is the complete mastery of the psychological battlefield, the terrain of your own mind. This is where the war is truly won. This is where respect is forged, not requested. The first campaign on this internal battlefield is waged against the insurgents of your own emotions. Sun Tzu stated, "The commander who is unable to control his temper is like a general who sends his troops to the assault as if they were a swarm of ants. The result is that 1/3 of his men are slain, while the town remains untaken. Your emotions, your anger, your pride, your impatience, your fear are these swarms of ants. When they are unleashed without discipline, they lead to disastrous, self-defeating outcomes. The person who seeks to be liked is a slave to the emotions of others, but just as dangerous is the person who is a slave to their own. A flash of anger in a negotiation reveals your frustration and gives your opponent leverage. A surge of pride makes you deaf to wise counsel. A wave of impatience drives you to act prematurely, abandoning a superior position for a quick but minor gain. Therefore, the strategist's primary discipline is the cultivation of a profound inner calm, an emotional equilibrium that remains undisturbed by the chaos of the external world. This is not the suppression of emotion. Suppression is a dam that will one day burst. This is the transmutation of emotion. It is the practice of observing the rise of an emotion, be it rage, envy, or anxiety, as you would observe a cloud passing in the sky. You acknowledge its presence, you note its color and its shape, but you do not identify with it. It is an event in you, not the entirety of you. This detachment gives you a critical space between stimulus and response. In that space lies the entirety of strategic genius. While others are swept away by the storm of their passions, you remain in the eye of the hurricane, still and seeing everything with perfect clarity. This mastery of self is the ultimate source of power. It is the first and most significant victory, and from it, all other victories will flow. The world can bring its greatest tempests to your shores, only to find you an immovable cliff, unshaken and sovereign. From this foundation of self-mastery, you can begin to deliberately shape the perceptions of others. Understand this critical distinction. This is not about crafting a fake persona or wearing a mask. A mask can be broken. A persona can crumble under pressure. This is about allowing the external world to witness the authentic result of your internal discipline. You do not need to project strength. You simply need to be disciplined, and strength will be the undeniable perception. The goal is not to be liked or disliked, loved or feared. These are shallow, volatile states. The goal is to be perceived as a force of nature, calm, calculated, and consequential. You will use Sun Tzu's principle of appearing weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak but on a psychological plane. When others expect an emotional outburst, you offer measured calm. This is perceived as immense strength. When you're methodically laying the groundwork for a major project, you remain silent and unassuming. Your quiet diligence will be mistaken for inaction or weakness, allowing you to advance without interference. You let others underestimate you. Their miscalculation is a strategic asset you cultivate. You do not correct their flawed perceptions with words. You correct them at the chosen moment with a decisive and successful action. This creates an aura of mystique and gravitas. People become cautious around you, not because you are threatening, but because they cannot fully comprehend you. They recognize that your actions are driven by a logic that is beyond their emotional, reactive world. They begin to respect you not for what you say, but for the profound and often surprising impact of what you do. This leads to the final element of psychological domination, the construction of your reputation. Your reputation is not what you claim to be. It is the cumulative narrative written by your past actions. Every promise kept, every deadline met, every moment of grace under pressure, every decision guided by logic over ego. These are the bricks with which you build an unassailable fortress of reputation. This structure becomes your silent ambassador. It is a shadow that precedes you into every room, influencing opinions and shaping interactions before you have spoken a single word. Sun Tzu never explicitly wrote about reputation, but the concept is embedded in his entire philosophy of winning without fighting. A commander with a reputation for brilliant, unpredictable victories often causes his opponents to surrender without a single clash of swords. Your reputation becomes an active, strategic weapon. When you have a reputation for unshakable integrity, your word becomes a binding contract, more powerful than any written document. When you are known for flawless execution, you are entrusted with greater responsibility and resources. When you are known for emotional stability, people will seek you out amidst chaos, granting you authority by default. You must guard this reputation with your life, for it is far easier to destroy than to build. A single act of indiscipline, a single broken promise, can undo years of meticulous work. The strategist is therefore relentlessly consistent. They understand that there are no small actions. Every email, every conversation, every choice is a brushstroke on the canvas of their legacy. They are not building this reputation for the sake of vanity or public acclaim. They are building it because it is the ultimate tool of efficiency. A powerful reputation dissolves resistance, attracts allies, and demoralizes adversaries. It is the quiet force that bends the world to your will, not through force or coercion, but through the sheer undeniable weight of your character. This is the essence of ruling from a throne of respect. It is a throne no one dares to approach with ill intent, for its foundations are not built on power that was taken, but on authority that was earned. You have journeyed inward, waged a war against the anarchy of your own emotions, and laid the foundations of an unshakable internal fortress. You have learned that true strength is not projected, but cultivated. Now, before we reveal how this cultivated respect is finally wielded as the ultimate weapon, ensure you are subscribed to this channel. The final articulation of mastery is a secret reserved for those who have demonstrated the discipline to see the campaign through to its end. The moment of execution, the decisive stroke, is nothing like the crude and chaotic clashes imagined by the amateur. There is no shouting, no overt conflict, no dramatic confrontation. Such displays are the theater of the weak, the last resort of those who have already failed strategically. The strategist's decisive action is instead an act of supreme elegance and terrifying precision. It is the culmination of all your preparation, all your observation, and all your patience. Sun Tzu captured its essence in a potent metaphor. The quality of the decision is like the well-timed swoop of a falcon, which enables it to strike and destroy its victim. Contemplate this image. The falcon does not waste its energy in aimless flight. It does not screech to announce its presence. It circles high above the chaos, its vision preternaturally clear. It observes the patterns below. It waits for the one singular moment of vulnerability, and then it descends. The strike is swift, silent, and final. This is the model for your action. Your victim is not a person, but an obstacle, a flawed argument, a dysfunctional system, a moment of corporate indecision, a long-standing impasse. While others exhaust themselves in debate, in emotional appeals, and in power struggles, you have been circling above, observing from your state of formless calm. You have gathered your knowledge. You have waited for the terrain to become favorable. This moment of opportunity often arrives disguised as a crisis. It is the point where the existing order breaks down, when the old solutions have failed, and when confusion and panic have taken hold of the other actors. This is the moment they are most vulnerable. This is the moment your falcon descends. Your strike is not an attack but a solution. It is a single, well-articulated insight that cuts through the noise. It is a calm, decisive action when everyone else is paralyzed by fear. It is the presentation of a plan so logical, so well-researched, and so perfectly timed that its adoption is not a matter of persuasion, but of sheer, undeniable necessity. The resistance you would have faced weeks earlier has evaporated, consumed by the chaos the situation itself created. You do not conquer the opposition, you simply provide the only viable path out of the wreckage they created for themselves. The victory is effortless, because the moment itself did all the heavy lifting for you. What follows this decisive stroke is perhaps the most defining characteristic of the master strategist, the consolidation and the aftermath. The amateur, having achieved a victory, celebrates. They seek applause, they claim credit, they bask in the glow of their triumph. This is a fatal error. It is a return to the old addiction of seeking external validation. The strategist does not celebrate. They simply observe. They watch quietly as the consequences of their action ripple outward, as the new reality they have engineered begins to take hold. Their work is not to revel in the moment, but to secure the future. They immediately begin to consolidate their position, reinforcing the new equilibrium, ensuring the solution is permanent. They are not a warrior feasting after a battle. They are an architect inspecting the foundations of a new edifice. This new reality is the true prize. The ultimate victory is not the successful outcome of a single event, but the establishment of a lasting peace on your terms. This peace is a state where future challenges are dissuaded before they are even conceived. Your reputation, forged in the fire of discipline and proven by the elegance of your execution, now acts as an invisible deterrent. Potential adversaries look upon your position and see no weakness to exploit. They analyze your past actions and find no emotional levers to pull. They conclude, through their own rational self-interest, that a direct challenge is strategically unsound. This is the essence of winning without fighting. You have shaped the terrain of your social and professional world to such a degree that conflict becomes an illogical choice for those around you. Your influence is no longer something you must actively assert. It has become a fundamental law of the environment you inhabit. And so, we arrive at the final philosophical conclusion. The journey from seeking to be liked to commanding respect was never a lesson in becoming harsh, intimidating, or unfeeling. It was a profound spiritual and intellectual revolution. It was the decision to shift your source of validation from the fleeting, unreliable opinions of the external world to the eternal, unshakable standards of your own inner sovereign. The core question of your life ceases to be, what must I do to make them like me? And becomes, what must I do to be a person I can deeply and fundamentally respect? The weapon you have forged is not, in its final analysis, for use against others. It is the ultimate tool for the defense of your own purpose, your own focus, and your own internal tranquility. The supreme power is not the one that must be constantly demonstrated. It is the authority that is so deeply embedded, so implicitly understood, that it never needs to be brandished. It is the throne that no one challenges, because the worthiness of its occupant is beyond question. By mastering yourself, you cease to be a participant in the petty games of ego and approval. You become a force of nature, a center of gravity around which chaos organizes itself into order. You may lose the shallow affection of the crowd, but you will gain something infinitely more valuable: the profound, silent, and unwavering respect of the very people who matter. And most importantly, you will finally and irrevocably gain the respect of the one person whose judgment truly counts: yourself. The war is over, not because you defeated every enemy, but because you created a reality where they no longer recognize you as a player in their game. You have ascended to the level of the game's creator,